As my magazine subculture, said by Dick Hebdige in 1979, is skater, the majority of skaters are male, which is why I've used a male model to represent a skater punk. My model is also wearing an Element skateboard jacket, Nike skateboarding shoes, and he has an Element skateboard too, to represent skaters. These things are subcultural capital, as they establish what kind of subculture he's a part of, and this was said by Sarah Thornton in 1995. My model is a male, is a teenager, because he could be an ideal self for other teenagers, because my main target audience is predominantly aimed at teenagers, so he could be an ideal self for this kind of audience. The kind of bands and artists that are featured in my magazine are mainly aimed at teenagers, as like they're all that kind of age range, the actual artists are, and it's quite new music that is just aimed at more of a younger audience, which is aimed quite well at my kind of audience. The skateboarding element for the whole magazine is aimed at teenagers mainly, as mainly teenagers are the ones that are actually skateboarding these days, but I put the age range of my magazine up to 35 for my target audience, because the skater punk genre pretty much started out in like the 1980s, late 90s, that kind of area, so people back then could want to read my magazine, but mainly it's teenagers. My masthead, Broken Bones, it links to my teenage audience, as I put a Z at the end of Bones instead of an S. I did this on purpose because this is quite a rebellious thing to do, which not only relates to the skater punk genre of the magazine, but it also relates to teenage audiences. Stereotypically, teenagers are seen as rebellious, and this is quite a rebellious thing to do, so I did this purposely to try and relate to my teenage audience. I put on a coupon for a discount at an online skate shop in my magazine, and I put this on the contents page, usually where the subscription advertisement is usually on most magazines, but I decided to challenge this, as I thought using a discount coupon for a shop that would relate to my audience would help people buy my magazine more, rather than just putting a subscription on. So I decided to challenge it by doing that. I use this because teens are stereotypically like to shop, and they have a disposable income which will help them able to buy things, and it links to the skateboarding genre, of course, and just the subculture of skater punk. My house style relates to my gender of my audience, as it's predominantly aimed at males, and I use blue mainly, as this is seen as a masculine colour, and it just relates to a male sort of audience, and it links to a male sort of audience, rather than a colour such as pink or something. It wouldn't really go with the style of magazine I was going for, so I thought blue felt like the right sort of colour to go for, and this was also a colour chosen by my class when I asked them on my questionnaire before I started making a magazine. I asked them what kind of house style they'd prefer, and I put up 2 different house styles, one with red and one with blue, and most of the people chose blue, so I went for that colour, as this was the most popular one. My masthead's name not only links to a subculture of skaters, but it also links to a male audience specifically, because it's quite an aggressive sounding name, Broken Bones, and you wouldn't really see this on a female based kind of magazine, as it's quite an aggressive sounding name, and it links to skateboarding and punk rock, which is what my magazine is all about. The style of my masthead is also aimed at males, as it looks quite aggressive as well, as the name does, and as it's got like sort of raggy sort of ends on the letters, and it looks quite roughly drawn, which links to punk rock as it's quite rough and aggressive, and skateboarding as it's quite a dangerous and aggressive sport. The bands and music which I've featured inside my magazine are all heavy bands, and stereotypically females wouldn't like this type of music. They'd like pop music, and males would more like this kind of music as it's quite masculine and aggressive. And this also links to my subculture of skater, as well as my male predominant audience. The interview for my magazine on my double page spread is of the same person that is on my main cover, which is a male that is wearing like skateboarding brands clothing, which relates to my skater audience, and he's a male himself, which could be an ideal self for my male predominant audience, as he skates and is in a band, which is part of what my ideal reader was, which I wrote before I started making my magazine, to use as an imaginary entity, which was said by Yen Ang. For my fonts, I have used sans serif for all of my fonts. On my cover I've used a font called Impact, which is quite a thick, bold sans serif font. This relates to my male audience as it's quite bold and masculine looking. However, if I was making a pop magazine, I would use serif fonts, because this is quite a feminine type of font, and it would link to my audience more. But as my audience is predominantly males, I've used sans serif, and I've also used a font called 28 Days Later, which is quite an aggressive looking font with parts of the letters slightly missing and looks rough and old, to relate to my punk sort of genre as well. My skates.co.uk coupon links to my regional identity, which is based in England and the UK, because this is a national magazine and it will be all over the UK. My audience will want to buy stuff from a shop that's actually in this country, of course, which is why I've used skates.co.uk. This is a British company, and this just links to my regional identity of my target audience. The price on my barcode is in pounds, because this is a national magazine and it will be sold in the UK, which will be sold for pounds in the British currency, of course, as it's based in the UK. I've used British and American bands, as it will be a national magazine and I need to reach the largest audience possible for my magazine, as the genre and the subculture is skater, which is quite a niche audience. So I decided to not just use British bands but American bands too, to widen the audience, because more people will start buying the magazine if I mention other bands from different countries that a lot of people would like, and a lot of people in this sort of area would enjoy, which is skater, of course.